Okay, so now I'm recording, but no, I just find these very fascinating. I probably don't have as big of a collection as I would like. I honestly just don't see that many of them. And like I said, other companies beside Indiana did, as I mentioned, Cambridge in their Everglade pattern. Now I can't think of any. Some of the, but anyway. So. The first one that we have here is pattern number 601. And these are some of the ones that Indiana did not name originally. They've been given names by collectors and in some cases glass authors. Um, this one was introduced in 1928, so it's fairly early in not quite the actual depression itself, but still in the time frame. I will say I've got a bibliography at the end. I'll kind of talk about this at as I go through it. On the right here on the screen, you'll see this is actually a page from Hazel Weatherman's Colored Glassware, The Depression Era, Volume 2. This was the best. This is just a nice example of the pieces in the pattern, everything that, as far as I know, that the pattern was ever made in. There is one piece right here in the top center. That's actually pattern number 6. We'll get to that in a minute. That's not part of the line, but I guess they just stuck it there for a filler. I don't know. Um, and when it was introduced in the Depression era, it was made in crystal, pink, and green, which were pretty standard colors that Indiana did a lot of their patterns in. Um, so this was of the lines I'm going to talk about today. This one was really, this could have been used for an actual bigger meal. I won't say dinner, but maybe it does have, they call it an 8.5 inch uh, salad plate. Well, that's still a pretty decent sized plate. You could fit a meal on it. So, um, I just think that it was very well designed and everything like that. Um, and like I said, the this on the left, this is a section from a price guide. Indiana, as did many companies, in between catalogs, they would do price guides where they just listed what the pattern was and how much, what everything cost. So that's what this is from a 1930s price guide. I got this from Craig Shenning. So I needed to give him credit for that too. But um, so here are the three main colors, green, pink, and crystal. And this is a representation of what I have in my collection. Um, again, it's not, don't see very much in crystal. All I've ever really seen are the large handled cake plates. Pink is something I don't see very much of, so it's taken me a while to get just those pieces that I have there. I see green quite frequently, especially the cream and sugar. But again, I think it's just well designed, again with the botanicals. Not really Art Nouveau. I mean, it's a little late to be considered Art Nouveau, but no, it's just a nice easy pattern. I enjoy looking for it. I just wish I saw more of it. And that's it was also a pattern that they carried on through the later years. The milk glass, the pitcher and tumbler you see here were done in the 50s when Indiana made milk glass. Um, There are cream and sugar sets out there. You don't see them very often. I know that Shelley Jurgensen has a set. I had a set until I guess I made the seller angry. I bought it in late May, early June of 2019, right before we left Houston. and I had not switched my address from Houston to Knoxville with eBay, and the lady sent it to our house in Houston and it got returned. And I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I pay for shipping a second time. Will you send it to me?" She refused. So, oh well. This green color, I think, is probably from the 1970s. Again, this is something that Indiana did, and I know that some collectors are not real happy with it, but they did it a lot of times in colors that they didn't previously make the pattern in. Um, we had some questions at our last convention in Tiffin where a dealer had some of the Tierra pitcher and tumbler sets, but they were clearly marked. She wasn't marking them as original 1930s Indiana. They were marked as Tierra, but it's still Indiana Glass who made them. So, we had to have a conversation about is it a re is it a is it a reproduction or is it a something that was remade by the same company? So, um, but again, I still think it's a nice design, very well done, um, but just something that has always caught my eye. All right. This one, here's one that's kind of unusual, and you really don't see these very much. This is the only piece, but since the leaves on this look exactly like the leaves on the avocado pieces, um, I think this was something Indiana tried and it didn't work out, or something. I don't know, but there's an apple plate floating around out there, and like I said, it's only made in the plate. There's no documentation to prove that Indiana made it. I tend to agree. The green is the same shade that they did. The design of the leaves is exactly like what they would do. So I do feel it's Indiana. I just think it's something they chose not to do. Um, all right. So here's another one. Um, this is pattern number 6. It was introduced in 1929. Collectors call this pebble leaf or crystal leaf. I put the Twiggy designation up there because that is one that Hazel Marie Weatherman used in some of her books. I really think it's found that they all go together. All any of these leaf-shaped ones were made by Indiana. But anyway, what you see here, like I said, again, I've got a small snippet from a price guide. I have and that's from Craig Shenning, but the two catalog pages you see here are from a 1950s era catalog that I have. Um, I know if anybody's familiar with the Glass Paper Fanatics, they have a slightly earlier version of this same catalog. So where theirs would show these pieces, mine showed discontinued, discontinued, discontinued. So this is slightly after that one that they have. But so it was a set. It was introduced in 1929. The price guide from the 1930s up there, they're just like serving plates, like for a party or something like that, as opposed to a dinner set. And then as they moved into the 50s, they added pieces. So they made punch bowls and tumblers and cups and things like that to go with it. So this is one that, again, Indiana kept reissuing it over the years, and they tried to make demand change, or as demand changed or wants that people needed change, they created new pieces to go with it. So again, that's why you see punch bowls and things like that with it.
It's a lot,
Um,
but I didn't have much breakfast.
um, and here are
I'm gonna go upstairs.
the green and crystal that you see. Again, all I've got are like serving plates and this little nut cup down in the lower left there. But that's what I have. And then Same thing with the crystal. Sadly, this is one, if I see pieces for a fairly low price, I will still pick them up. So I don't know how many of each of these individual pieces I really have. Um, but here it is. I'll talk about the picture on the left is the pink. And Indiana's pink at that point in time is a really light pink. Um, and especially with patterns like this. But then you see the other three pictures you see here, and I have to take credit. One of them is not the best picture, but that's the photographer. But the top blue divided plate, that's actually, I believe that's probably from the 40s or 50s. That's actually a stain on the bottom of the plate. So it's not actually a blue plate. It's a blue stain. It's a crystal plate with the blue stain on it. Um, Below that, you've got an amber plate. Yes, that is amber. It is a much better amber than that picture would share. That's again my photography skills. And then on the right, I've got just one of the little serving dishes, one of the little nappies over here that was has a cranberry stain on it. So again, I think these are all from the 50s or 40s, 50s. Maybe the amber one is later into the 60s, but again, it was one that Indiana kept reissuing in different time frames and things like that for a long time. Um, this is probably my favorite. This is pattern number 605, introduced in 1930. Most people call it lily ponds. I put the sunflower up there because I have seen more and more people refer to this large. If you look at the reprint from Hazel Marie Weatherman's book, on the left-hand side, third piece down, is a rather, it's a berry bowl almost. And if you look at it from on above it, it does look kind of like a sunflower, and that's the one that people have become enamored with, and so I see people call that a sunflower bowl. This one, I think, is more of like a luncheon or dessert set. It didn't have a cup and saucer, but it did have a sugar and creamer. It had just a variety of different things, a couple of different celery trays, which I'll talk about in a minute. Um, so again, it's out there. I've never seen the pattern. The price guide over here shows a 9 1/4 inch plate. I've never seen one of those. Um, so, I don't know what's out there and what's not. Um, so here it is. This is one they didn't do in pink. They only did it in green and crystal originally in the 30s. So you see a good representation of some of the pieces you hear. There's the smaller 7 inch plate. There's the bond that's in the back. Just to the left of that plate is that berry sized bowl that they have there, that people call a sunflower. There's the sugar and creamer. I've only ever seen the sugar and creamer in green, and you don't see it very often at that. The bonbon right there and the plate really show off the lily and the lily pads. So it's really a nice decoration. The interesting piece right here in the front center is the little dessert cup and its underplate. And it really does look like a lily flower on a lily pad. So I thought it was just a really nice design that they did there. Um, if you look at the crystal over here, I've got both examples of the handled pickle trays. Typically, you're going to see the two-handled one. This is the only four-handled one over on the right that I've seen before. So, um, like I said, just an interesting piece. Um, but and then again, this is a pattern that Indiana reissued pieces from over the years into the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and things like that. So if we start over here, if we go start in the lower left, that is an actual that's the two-handled pickle dish, but they've used the Goofus treatment on it. And that's the only piece I've ever seen like that. Um, it's just very interesting, and I think it's very nicely done with the flowers, with the color they have compared to the leaves. If we go kind of to the top left, there's an amber dish. Again, my guess is that's probably from the 60s into the early 70s when amber was becoming more prevalent again. What's interesting about that is that relish dish does not have any open space between the handle and the bowl itself. So, like if you look on the Goofus one, you can clearly see the hole in there by the upper handle. Well, there's glass in that space there in the amber one. We go just to its right, that's one of the preserve plates. It's bigger than what would go under the little dessert cup, and that is the only one I've ever seen. It's in that green color that they did in the late 40s into the 50s that most people call terrace green. And then we've got two examples of carnival colors that they did when the carnival craze in the 50s, 60s, and especially the 70s was starting again. So again, it was a pattern that they repeated quite frequently. You can find it in milk glass, that large berry bowl. I see it quite frequently in milk glass. I have seen a dessert set of the small dessert plates and the dessert cup in blue opalescent. Um, the museum in Dunkirk, if I remember correctly, has a set of that. And I've also seen a set on eBay, but they wanted way more money than I was willing to pay for it at the time. So I'm not really sure what colors you're going to find it in. This is a very simple pattern. This is pattern number 606. I'm guessing at the introduction date here of 1930 to 1931. That's just my kind of guess on it. Collectors call it Loganberry, and it was only ever made in two pieces: the grill plate and the footed bonbon. Um, both were initially, like I said, produced in the 30s in the crystal and the green, which I have. I also have a red stained one. So I'm guessing that was from the 40s and 50s. And again, it was the footed bonbon, especially, was a piece that they pulled out and used quite frequently over the years. So I'm not sure what all kind of colors you'll find that piece in. Um, and I'm going to be honest, this is pattern number 7, introduced in 1937. It's the latest of any of the ones that I would call a botanical pattern that they did. Um, it's my least favorite because by this time they had stopped making it. If this was in green, I would mm, very probably have a collection of it. It's not. It's typically found in crystal and or pieces that are crystal pieces that have been decorated. So again, when you look at this price guide list from, I think this was 1937 or 1939 that this one was from, um, it was just an accessory pieces, party type pieces. It wasn't meant to serve a meal on or anything like that. So, oh, and you do find it, I should mention, you do find it in milk glass, which you'll see like, and this was one that, again, they added pieces because if you look from this 1930s price list, there are no candle holders. But in the 1950s, they made candle holders out of those little uh, berry dessert cups. So, um, so again, they were willing to change it. And like I said, and that is honestly the only piece of that pattern that I have. And I only picked it up because I ended up doing a similar talk for the Peach State Depression Glass Club a couple of years ago, and I thought, oh, I need to pick up a piece if I'm going to talk about these kind of patterns for them. So that's all I have. I don't. It's not my favorite, so I don't really pay much attention to it. But so there are my references again. Craig Shenning. Obviously, Craig has really done a good job of working on increasing the knowledge of Indiana glassware. And obviously, Hazel Marie Weatherman, the original pictures are mine and some of the catalog pages. But so that's kind of the end of mine. I'm going to stop sharing and we can go back. Does anybody have any questions or any comments?
Well, I really like that avocado footed bowl that in the green. That was so pretty.
Hmm. Yeah, like I said, I just think these kind of designs are just so interesting. And yeah, I know that Everglade is very much a popular collect, or Everglade is a very popular collector in terms of Cambridge. I know quite a few collectors of Everglade, and um, I think Indiana did a nice job with it. I think again, the fact that they had a designer there who I've not been able to find and say that I would probably bet it was probably the same designer that designed all of those. That was obviously a design that they liked and appreciated and chose to do it. And I haven't been able to find out who that person is yet. Hence why I was looking earlier at the patent website. Um, but it's just very interesting to see what you may find and what you and like I said, there are things that like that Goofus glass
Mm.
piece. I never expected to see that, and that popped up on eBay. Um, not
That
too,
was a really cool piece. Like
yeah,
I don't generally like Goofus, but if more of it was done like that, I would like it a lot more.
yeah, and
Really
this
nicely done.
and the paint enamel, whatever you want to call it, is still in fairly good shape, so it's not damaged. A lot of Goofus
Hmm.
there's somebody is selling. Indiana did in the late teen or the middle teens, Bird and Strawberry. They've got Goofus pieces of Bird and Strawberry, and they want a lot of money for them. And I'm like, if the Goofus treatment was really pristine, I'd pay that much money for it. I just can't. And it's been up on eBay for over a year now. I'm like, I just can't.
I miss eBay charging you for putting listings up because I think it kept a little bit on that. Well, it's been up for years and hasn't sold. So
Right,
I
exactly.
felt better when at least I knew they were paying 50 cents each time they re-upped
Hmm.
it.
So, yeah, I just think that's a very interesting piece. Like I said, I'm really angry with myself about the little snafu with the milk glass creamer and sugar and avocado. I would have loved to have had that, and I've not seen them since. I know they have them in the museum in Dunkirk, but other than that, and I know Shelley Jorgensen, who if you don't you're not familiar with Shelley, she is in the process still of writing very good books on glass creamers and sugars, and she, I think she was hoping to have one out this summer, and I don't, she should be getting close with it, so I don't know. But she writes, she's a meticulous researcher, which I like because at times I'm not. So I wish I was better. I wish I was better at that certain topic. So, but that's neither here nor there at this point in time.
As long as you recognize when you're not meticulous and don't state like this is this,
Well, I mean, like,
probably in there maybe seems like
well, and like I could kick myself. I actually met a woman who worked in the decorating room at the factory in Dunkirk. Did I write any of what she was telling me down? Did I get her name? No. I was foolish. I should have done that. I should have continued those conversations, and I didn't. So, but oh well. Oh well. So,
Very informative and very, very interesting. Good job.
yeah. Well, like I said, like I mentioned Everglade. I've got an amber Everglade sugar. I need the creamer. I need, no, I need that.
You can't have it because I've got
Oh,
the set. It's a recent find.
oh, well, that's good.
So I just recently got that.
I've had that.
But
I
yeah.
don't remember. I've had the sugar for several years now, and on the lookout for the creamer. But oh well.
That's
Well,
the
they also
best,
had one
matching
without the
up the
foot,
orphans.
Yeah. But so okay, so
Does anyone have any glass to share, Indiana or otherwise?
yeah, what
Well,
has
I
anybody
showed you
found?
my Cambridge.
Yeah.
I've also can follow up with the Cambridge. It's a Caprice fruit bowl in crystal with the crimped rim. So, which was done in the late 30s and discontinued by the 40s
How
or
long was
thereabouts.
Caprice made?
Different parts of it were made for 23 years.
So it's kind of like Indiana. They would make it and then stop for a while and make it again.
Well, no, what happened is with the World War II, it pretty well put a curtail on a lot of their making. And
Oh,
so
okay.
they had like a huge amount of pieces, and then it just decreased, 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 and then they pulled the colors out, took took those out, and then a few pieces were added later in the 50s, but toward the end of the Cambridge production time.
Okay.
But then the molds went elsewhere, so other people carried it on. So, but then the last piece I found, I have no idea. It was labeled as a handled sherbet, but it also had a tag that said it was a creamer. So I have no idea. And I can't, it's got little star cutouts in it or engravings.
Is there any possibility it's European?
It very likely, that's my first thought. But I thought it was just really kind of unique and different, and besides, it was cheap.
And that's really good too, right?
Well, for $1, $1. I mean, I could budget with $1.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's my show and tell.
Okay.
I actually hit eBay recently. I'm starting to go through my silver overlay and see what I have and remind myself. And I discovered that I did not have a silver fern. This is Silver City's. That make it better? Not really. It's Silver City's silver fern.
I can
And
see
I
it
did
right
not have
there the way
one
you're
that
holding
had a
it.
label. And now I have one that has a label that identifies the piece and the pattern from the company too. So I was pretty excited to snag that. It's not, it's probably the least common of their common patterns,
Right.
I guess. You know, it's not Flanders and it's not Forest, but it was in the catalog sort of similar.
Right.
But I think it was a later one that was not quite as popular. I like it. I think it's really neat.
Mhm.
And the other thing I got that I'm really excited by, I believe it's Paden City, but it has the
Mhm.
Lotus overlay on it with the Lotus label on the bottom. But I had
Nice.
not earlier really filled in a lot of the Lotus patterns because they're in books, etc. But it's also getting kind of silly that I don't have them. And when they come with a label like that, I'm absolutely a sucker for it. And
Mhm.
on white, so it's easy to photograph. Like that's even better because it
Beautiful.
usually comes unclear.
And I mean, I kind of look, kind of see, I pay attention to Paden City Glass, and I think a lot of their milk glass is really well done, and I think a lot of it has, I've seen overlay on their milk glass more than I would expect. I don't want, you don't typically think of milk glass with an overlay on it, but I think it's nice.
Yeah. I really like the colored, especially the opaque glass with overlay on it, but it's also a lot more expensive. So I own a lot more of the clear because I'd rather buy two things that have labels on them than one really pretty one.
Uh-huh.
So I really like it when that comes together.
Okay. So, I think it's. Okay. Oh, they're coming.
So Wesley, what do you have?
Well, I was trying to think Indiana glass, and I was trying to imagine what you were meaning by botanicals. So I guessed correct. The only piece I think I have of the avocado,
Mm-hmm.
although I've always thought this is newer. I don't know. Did they make it longer? Like they made it later?
Well, again, yeah, that's one of those pickle dishes that they made
Yeah.
later. I mean,
It's got the glass feels like it feels newer. It doesn't feel
yeah.
old. And then my favorite, this is not botanical, but I pulled out my favorite Indiana piece, so figured since we were talking Indiana.
Yeah.
I think that's probably it. I don't see a lot of Indiana. There's a lot of this in Canada, but not a lot of the botanical patterns. I've seen Loganberry though, and I didn't know it was as old as you were saying. So now I feel like I might buy a piece.
It only takes two pieces to have a collection.
Oh, if that's true, I always say three. So if it's two, then that's even
Well,
more dangerous.
I
You
don't
only
know.
needed two, so you could have a complete collection with only two without having a collection because you don't have three.
Sometimes there's only two pieces available, right? I mean, I have some I collect stretch glass primarily and a bunch of other stuff. Indiana didn't make any of that. Um, but there are certain colors of stretch glass where there are extremely limited number of pieces. So you can have five pieces and you got it all. Um, I don't know, Dean, is it okay to crash the party and show them a piece of stretch glass?
Oh yeah, this is show and tell. Whatever you, I've got some pieces waiting for show and tell that are not Indiana glass. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you can see behind me, you can see some cases of topaz stretch glass. I'm actually mostly emptying those cases to take over to our convention, which is happening Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this week. And we will have a very, very large display of topaz stretch glass, which is actually Vaseline glass. And so you know what happens with Vaseline glass when you put a black light on it. And so we will have a display probably probably around 300 pieces, I'm thinking. Um, and we will have it displayed under white lights and also displayed with black lights. So it should be pretty spectacular. But anyways, I just picked something out of the cabinet to share. Um, this is two pieces of glass, so I'm holding it together, but you can see more or less what it is. It's a cheese and cracker plate. And if you look at the plate, the edge of the plate, see the edge of the plate is gold on top of a glue stencil. So the way they did this was they had stencils that were basically glue, and they attached them to the plates or the bowls or whatever, and then they painted them gold. And so they look like very fancy gold edges. Um, Sometimes the gold wears off, but the glue never wears off. So some people have made the mistake of thinking that too much of the gold was worn off, and so they would take the rest of the gold off, and then they would take the glue off, and they find out that the glue is baked onto the piece of glass. It's not going to come off. So don't ever try to do that. But this was probably made by the Fenton Art Glass Company sometime in the 1920s. Um, the decorating was probably done by a third party decorator. It wasn't. Fenton did not do gold edges and things like that at the factory. They they would have sold these to a decorating company. The decorating company would have put the gold on them. Fenton did have a decorating department. They just didn't do this kind of decoration. That's all. So, anyways, that's what I had to share.
Nice.
Daniel, what'd you find?
Well, I don't have anything today because the house is kind of all put
Uh,
together, but next week I will show you a picture of my table with
okay,
all kinds of
that'd be good.
depression glass on it.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
That'll be
Well,
fun.
then I guess I'll go with mine. So a couple of months ago, I did the little presentation on Greentown glass. Glassware made by at the factory in Greentown, Indiana. So this is a holly amber, and yes, they consider this a tumbler, even though it's got the beaded edge on it. I don't know how you drink out of it, but they do. But there's an interesting story behind it. This piece, if it were in mint condition, would be several $100s. I went to the Greentown Glass Festival early in June, and there was somebody selling tumblers like this with big cracks in them for $100. And I was like, I just can't do that. So end of July, 1st of June, end of June, 1st of July, I was passing out, taking show cards for the Fostoria Glass Society of Tennessee show that happened a couple of weeks ago, up and down Route 66 in Sevierville. And I walked into a place, and I always have to go shop if I'm just dropping off cards. Somebody had this. Now it's not in mint condition. One little bead is missing there by my finger, and there's a chip on the bottom. I paid $6 for it. So I was like, okay, I did good.
Is that actually two colors, or is that the reflection?
Say that again, please.
Is that actually two colors?
No, it is, and I'm not going to do a very good job of explaining it. It is a heat reactive glass.
Okay, so it looks like two colors, though.
It
That
looks
is
like two
coming to accurately.
colors.
Okay, that's cool.
Yes. So it is meant to be the amber that you see here on these panels, but this section cools at a different rate, type, and everything. So you come up with this opaque. And so they had, it's almost like opalescent. Okay, it's kind of my understanding. And they did do, you can find, there are very few of them opalescent pieces that were made at Greentown with crystal and the opaque. They were working on, when the factory was done, what they called rose agate, which was a pink or and the opaque. And there are like one or two pieces known in existence because they were still working on it when the factory burned. So there's a museum in Greentown and they do have one of the pieces there. So, but it's very interesting. It's a beautiful color. Um, so as I said, we had the Fostoria Glass Society of Tennessee, and I don't typically collect Fostoria glass, but I had to have the penguin. They did make a penguin. And given the fact that in April we saw Galapagos penguins and in May we saw African penguins, I thought I needed another penguin. So, I just a cute little animal. Yes, I probably truly have an animal collection if I want to admit it, but oh well. I did find some Indiana glass. This is a console bowl in pattern 1000. Um, they've got a ruby stain platinum design in there as well. It did come with a pair of candlesticks. These are these have not been confirmed to be Indiana. They're listed in the Felt Store candlestick book as probable Indiana, but we just haven't, no documentation has been found to prove that. So, and I have a thing for console sets too. So now the last thing that I found, these are Indiana sugar and creamer. This is 607 double fleur de lis. But what's really interesting, and if I can get it in there a little closer, the this is all enamel work. This is not etched or anything like this. This is actually the basket from Indiana's Lorraine pattern. And they did this kind of I don't they just did. This is not the only kind of piece where it's true enamel work, but it's with an etch that they did, or it's with a mold-based pattern like this. This is the first one from the mold-based pattern, but I found the sugar and creamer, and the decoration is in beautiful shape. I mean, I didn't the dealer was asking $40 for it, and I gladly paid that, because the decoration was good. So that's all my show and tell. So, all right. So I think we will see each other next month. I have had a couple of people contact me.